Welcome to Never Again News. I'm Lori Watkins in Washington, D.C. I'd like to bring in a special studio guest now, Senator Sam Brownback. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Pleasure to join you.
Thank you. You have been a U.S. Senator, a governor, and most recently the ambassador for religious freedom. What have all of these roles prepared you for right now about what's going on the ground?
It's shown me that you need to stand up for religious freedom around the world. If you don't, it leads to genocide. Religious minorities are the ones that are almost always are the ones that are involved in a genocide. You can think of the Holocaust that everybody recalls from World War II was a religious minority, a Jewish minority. Before that was the Armenian Holocaust at the end of the Ottoman Empire in 1915. Currently, you could go to the Uyghurs, which are Muslims, being in a genocide in China. And that's what's really taught me, is if you can protect this core human right of religious freedom, you have the right to do with your own soul what you see fit, that really protects your religious minorities and protects your citizenry, and that's what we need to do.
I can feel your passion on this. Why is this particularly interesting and important to you?
I've seen so many people be family members of people that have been killed, imprisoned. It seems so unnecessary in a world that we're in today, in 2023. Why wouldn't you just respect another person's choice of what their faith is and just say, that's your choice, this is my choice? Why can't we just respect it? But it doesn't happen. You have to really stand up and fight for it. And often times you have to fight for it with very strong measures and sometimes with weaponry.
You've recently written two op-eds, one specifically in the DC Journal on genocide, and you called out GOP presidential candidates that are running on this issue and why they're not speaking out. Can you further discuss that, please?
Well, I just think it's such a core principle, and particularly for Republicans, religious freedom is this core human right. We view it as the cornerstone human right. If you can get this one right, you can build your other human rights off of it. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. But you got to get this one right. And for Republican presidential candidates, a lot of what a campaign is about talking to the country. It's a discussion. And we should be discussing with them the central importance of religious freedom and internationally on our foreign policy.
You also authored a second op-ed in the Washington Times where you pull back the curtain to have a wider perspective on what's going on between Russia and Iran. And I'm just curious on how you would explain Armenia and Israel and how you think they could be working more closely together on this.
I guess I think this is kind of the classic romantic story where the guy and the girl have this misunderstanding at the first, and at the end they fall in love. Armenia and Israel really they're like each other. They are Armenia, the first Christian nation, Israel, the only Jewish nation. They're both democracies. They both are in difficult neighborhoods. And you look at it, why don't you two guys get along here? Israel's shopping for Muslim allies. Armenia is just shopping to survive. And so they get in odd arrangements. But you look at the two of them and you go, you two should really be very close allies and moving forward. And I honestly think this is going to happen. If Armenia can make it through these current difficulties, that's really the issue on my mind right now, is Armenia being able to survive really this next year or two.
You've been to the region now twice, sir, and I'm curious as to what you think the future holds and what the long-term consequences are that will happen from this conflict.
Well, I've only been to Armenia once. I've been to the region in other countries in there a number of different times, but I'm concerned about one of two scenarios right now. One scenario is that Russia foments discontent within Armenia and moves to decapitate and remove the government. And this will be with complicity from Azerbaijan and Turkey. I think there's Russian-Azerbaijan collusion that's taking place in this. So one is either a Russian decapitation or trying to remove the head of government. The second is just a full-scale invasion from Azerbaijan backed by Turkey of Armenia. And the Russians just being a long-term protector of Armenia, but just saying, you want to move towards democracy? This is what that's going to get you. That's why I think we've got to really step in and be very supportive. Kansas National Guard has been in a training relationship with Armenia for years, but now we need the U.S. Secretary of Defense to go to Armenia and to talk with the Armenian leadership about the support of democracy and us supporting a democracy, a strong democracy, a fledgling democracy in that region, or it could get disastrous very quickly.
Building off of that, talking about the highest level of leadership here in the U.S., what do you think the Biden administration could be doing or could have done to help this situation at all?
There are so many things they could have done at a pretty low price tag. You could have just said, we're going to stop selling U.S. military equipment to Azerbaijan. We're not going to waive the 907 sanctions any longer. They could have gone to Turkey and said, if you keep backing this, we're going to put economic sanctions on you, on aluminum and steel exports from Turkey into the United States, similar to what we did during the Trump administration on Pastor Brunson. We put sanctions on him and they let him go. But you got to have some real teeth to it.
And the UN just did this in Haiti when they announced the invasion, right? Or the support that they're going to also use the 907 rule. So there are instances where this is being done. So I agree that more could have been done by this administration.
But now you got to look at the circumstances you're in now. You've got all these refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh, the Artsakh region, 120,000 probably all flee into Armenia. You got to support and you got to help them, but we've got to now stand up for Armenia proper. And I think that really calls on us not sending the other officials to provide aid to the region, which is fine, and we need to provide aid. We need to send in Secretary of Defense, the military people, to show a military support for Armenia.
Why do you think this has become a Christian issue?
I think because we're seeing another ancient Christian population being run out of the region. We've seen this happen in Iraq. There was 2.5 million Christians. There are now 200-some thousand that are left. Egypt, you still have a substantial Christian population, but most of the Middle East, North Africa, the Christians have all been run out. They've come to the United States, Canada, Europe. They form a new life, and you're kind of going, that's been the playbook. But we're finally starting to say, no, you shouldn't be forced to immigrate to another place because of your faith. That is not the world that we want, nor is it the world we should have.
Or for any reason.
Or for any reason, really, but that's what's been happening for decades. And it's just, no, we should stand up and allow these people to be able to fight for themselves. And we should provide military support, and we should provide backing for the Armenian people to be able to stand up and defend themselves.
Thank you, sir. You were recently on the airwaves in Iowa. Why do you think this is an important issue for America's heartland to understand what's going on so far away?
Well, I mean, Iowa's where the presidential race starts. I was in that race one time in the 08 cycle, and Iowa's a great place to do it. It's got a number of social conservatives, a number of Christian conservatives. They've got a heart for these sort of things. It's also the way Reagan did it. When he was confronting the Soviet Union, it was all detente before Reagan. Reagan says, no, this is an evil empire, and I'm going to call it out. And he talked about the lack of religious freedom in the Soviet Union. He said Jews can't immigrate to Israel. Evangelicals can't practice their faith. This is a heart issue for the American public. And in the heartland, these are key issues that really play well, because it's not about your wallet, it's about your heart. And that's where people operate from. It's where we should operate from.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Senator. Really appreciate you being here and offering us your perspective on the issue.
My honor.
Thank you. Please get involved in the 120,000 Reasons campaign at 120,000reasons.org or at 120,000 Reasons on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll continue to report on the developing situation in Armenia and Artsakh. Join us again next time on Never Again News.